We have got one more speaker in this section. I'm really excited because I am such a fan of Halil. Halil is joining us to talk about future world changers. Good morning, Halil. It's good to see you.
Morning, Benny. How are you? You all
I'm
right?
all right. I'm all right. I'm not going to carry on talking because your time has been cut short by Hannah Wilson. So I'll pass straight over to you. Go for it, Halil.
Brilliant. Thank you. Morning, everyone. Okay, so basically, what I'm going to talk about today is um, the culture I've got at my school and how we got there. So it's all about belonging and trying to develop the whole child. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about how we've made that happen. So I want to start with the end, if that's okay. So this here is the end of our belonging, of the things that we've done over the past three and a bit years, really, at the school. And these two lovely young ladies, they presented assemblies, both of them individually, about their culture and about their backgrounds. So one was about Zimbabwe, and the other one was about Kurdistan. And this was the culmination of everything I've always ever wanted when I became a head teacher. And that's for children to be able to share themselves completely and to be themselves completely in the school. So this is the end. This is the outcome, and I wanted to share this first. They did this in front of the whole school. They shared everything from what they eat, what they wear, the music they listen to, the language they speak. And I can tell you something. I don't think I've never done an assembly where I've had a rapturous round of applause so spontaneous as they did. And it was just it was a pleasure to see. But I just want to talk to you about the outcome first, because I need to talk to you about how we've got there. All right. So let me just share this with you. So we talked about, oh, you can see the picture's gone over the words there, but we talked, there's been a lot of talk today about mirrors and windows, and we do the same thing at Bronson at our school. So a mirror, when we talk about a mirror, that, in terms of the analogy, it's about a reflective curriculum. I want children to feel like they're seen and they're represented and they feel valued. And then when we talk about windows, we're talking about sharing those differences. And we talk a lot at our school about understanding each other, and there's a unitedness in knowing our differences. And I feel it's really important that we celebrate all the individuals, all of their differences, to allow them to feel like they belong. Without those things, we wouldn't be able to move forward. So when I talk about, I'll just go back. When I talk about curriculum, for example, I'm really looking at my school. We've got Lifter. We work with the Prosperity Project. We use other adults in the school to be able to reflect things in our curriculum as well. But it can't just be the curriculum on its own, because it's like technology, right? So stay with me. It's like technology. We've got all these apps, a plethora of apps and technology. But if you don't know how you're using them or why you're using them, actually they're pointless. They just sit there. And it's the same with the curriculum. I've got all of these different things that are in my curriculum and in the school's curriculum. But actually, if the culture's not right in your school, if the culture's not right in your classroom, then those things are meaningless. They're just topological. We're just scratching the surface. So for me, it was really important to get the culture right at school. So this is the step before our curriculum, making sure that the culture was right. And what I mean by that is it's about psychological safety. Staff feeling like it's okay to challenge things. Children feeling all right to openly speak about things without being chastised. And it's been a massive shift for us. That cultural shift was so important for us to be able to do that. We were really lucky to have Benny as well, Benny Cara, come and do some work with us as well, and talk to the staff about and the trust about language and how we use language. And it's all right to make mistakes. Yeah, it's okay. That's fine. If I hadn't have started this, if we hadn't have started this culture shift, we wouldn't be able to do the curriculum in the way that we do and use the resources that we've got in a pertinent way. So culture is really important, right? But before that, it was our vision. So look, I started at the end. You can see I'm going back to the beginning almost, and it's part of our vision. Now, we decided on the word belong. Belong. We did it all together, by the way. So the vision is all of ours: the children's, the teachers, the staff, all of the staff, the parents, advisory board. It belongs to all of us. But it was key to have the word belong in there. Now imagine if I'd had the word belong in the vision, but we didn't have the culture. And imagine if you don't have the culture, then how can you have the curriculum? So they all link together. They're all intrinsically linked, and they all mean something. They're all important. So we had the word belong. It was one of the things that we wanted. It came from something. It came from somewhere, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But it embodies the whole idea of children feeling like they can be themselves. They can bring their whole selves to school. They can talk about their home lives and their and the things that they do outside of school in school. The reason for that is it's a richness, isn't it? Because I'm going to try and give you an analogy. Okay, so I remember when I was at school, especially when I was at secondary school, I often called myself Superman, right? And I don't mean because I had special powers, because I didn't, but I had two identities. So I'm a Turkish Cypriot, okay? And both my parents, my family, all Turkish Cypriot. And my dad came over here. My mum and dad came over here before the war in 1974 in Cyprus. And growing up in the area that I grew up in, it was hard to be a Turkish Cypriot. Plainly, that's what it was. So I couldn't be a Turkish Cypriot at school, especially at secondary school. So I was Turkish Cypriot at home, and I ate the foods that I ate, listened to the music that I listened to, spoke the language that I spoke, and then because something to, and I didn't feel the belonging and the to be the person that I wanted to be at school. So it was really difficult. So I didn't have that chance. So I was giving 100% of myself at school, but only of 50% of my entirety. So what I mean by that is part of me, I gave all of part of me, but I didn't give all of me. And I feel really strongly about that for my children. I don't want them to feel like that. I want them to bring their whole selves to school. So that was one of the things, and one of the reasons why we had the word belong in our vision, and it runs through everything that we do, completely everything. So where did it start? It starts with your why. It starts with what you're trying to do. So I've just given you my story. I've got another one. When I first started headship in this school, so it's my first headship, I had to do an assembly, and it was an assembly to the parents and to the children, and it was my first assembly. And nobody really knew me. I just kind of started, and I was told by somebody outside of the school not to tell people that I was Turkish. So, as you can imagine, I got to the assembly, and I had these things running in my head, like, don't tell them you're Turkish, you're in a very white working class area. These are all the things that I've been told, they're not going to accept you, it's going to make things difficult. You might get racism, it's so on and so forth. So I stood there, and the first thing I told them was my name. And then I told them I was Turkish Cypriot. And you know what? The amount of people that I got coming up to me afterwards telling me that they love Turkish food and that they've been to Turkey, and they knew some of the words, some swear words, by the way. There was a connection made straight away. And I had to take that fear has to go. We have to feel safe in where we're working. We shouldn't have to feel fear at all. But that was something I had to do, and I had to model that as the head teacher, because if I don't do it, my staff won't do it, and if my staff don't do it, my children won't do it. It's about us going back to our why. We want children that are going to grow up to be future leaders, who are going to be empathetic, who are going to show emotional intelligence, who are going to be accepting of others, and allowing everybody to be 100% of themselves 100% of the time. And that's it. That's me. Done.
Timing there, Halil. Thank you as always. I always love listening to you, and thank you for focusing on the culture. I think so many schools do the work on the curriculum without thinking about the culture that we need around the curriculum to actually hold the conversations and to get that resonance. So can we just unpack one of the phrases you use to make sure everyone understands what do you mean by psychological safety, and how have you gone about like consciously creating a psychologically safe school for your staff?
Okay, so psychological safety is all about being able to question and challenge without the fear of repercussion. I think that's probably one of the main things, to be honest with you. Look, let's put it out there. There's the whole conflict in Ukraine is absolutely like it's hard to watch. And yeah, we all feel like we've got to do something about it. But then I have members of staff come up to me and say, why didn't we do the same thing for Afghanistan, for Syria, for Palestine? And do you know what? That's a hard thing for people to say. These are my my white British staff members who are turning around and asking these questions. People are feeling things, they feel it, but they feel like they're not able to say it. And when you hold on to things, Hannah, and you can't say them, they manifest. So I'd rather have people openly speak about things so we can discuss them in a safe environment. I think it's a cultural thing, and I think a lot of schools and organisations, just probably don't do this part as well as they should, and have that opportunity to be able to talk about things openly. I want my kids to talk openly. If they can't, then if my staff can't, how are my kids? So
I think it's one of the ironies, isn't it, of the DEI work, that we really think about creating psychologically safe schools for our children, so they feel safe in those different spaces, and we expect them to be risk takers and to like put up their hand and make mistakes in the classroom. But we don't always consciously do that for the staff. So do you mean if there's leaders listening, what were some of the first steps you did to almost like change that culture, to give permission to people to come forward and challenge you and ask those questions?
I don't know. I'd like to say, it's just me personally. This is how I am. I don't know. I think I've always, people call it imposter syndrome. And I think there's an element of that. So I don't think I'm always right. I'm constantly questioning what I'm doing. And so I've done that, and I've reflected that from within my SLT as well, Hannah. So my SLT is made up of different people from different backgrounds, some teaching, some not, and we openly state, look. So if I make a decision or I say something, I always back it up with, I'm just saying it. Tell me if I'm wrong, or I'm just saying it. What do you think? And we always have the same. Is that language? It's that commonality of what we do, because you've got a person this side and a person this side with different ideals. But if you keep talking and challenging each other, you'll meet in the middle and do the right thing for the kids and for the staff, essentially.
But what I'm hearing there, in your part of your leadership brand, part of your leadership presence, is the fact that you are open, you decenter yourself, you put your ego to one side, and you don't put yourself up in the hierarchy that I'm the head, thereby everything I say and do is right. And I think that can be problematic in a lot of contexts. And I also think some of the stories you've shared, and I've heard you talk before as well, about how you're willing to be vulnerable and share your own story. That's powerful, isn't it? Because that gives permission to other people to then do the same.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's all starting to come out now. It's all starting to happen. It's taken a while now. So I've now got staff members. The irony of, so for example, those two children that I showed you at the beginning who did their talks, I've had adults come up to me and say, I want to share my culture. I want to share my background. I want to be able to share my experiences. and they want to do the same thing. And I think it's going to become almost like a running feature at school now. So, you know, we'll have children and staff sharing themselves a lot more. But yeah, it's all come from, I suppose, me modeling that, allowing that to be.
Yeah, look, I love that, because I think some schools are asking others to share their stories, but we all need to be willing to do that. So we're all feeling vulnerable together. So my final question for you, this idea of the legacy of your young people being the world changers. What are your hopes for the children who leave your school, and how they're going to go out there and change the world?
You know, the main thing I want them to do is I want them to, you can see what's going on around the world, and we see what's going on in different organizations, and I want them just to be, I want them to be hardworking, I want them to be empathetic, I want them to be able to feel safe in being who they are, and also to challenge it. So if they don't feel safe, and if they can't be who they want to be, I want them to challenge the narrative. I want them to challenge what's going on, but in a diplomatic, in a sensitive way. I want them to grow up to be world changers who are going to make the world a better place, basically. And I suppose that's the legacy I want to leave with them, for them to leave the legacy for what comes next. So yeah.
Beautiful. That's lovely, Halil. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sorry it wasn't the keynote at the face-to-face conference, but it's lovely to have you here sharing the story of your school. We'll get you at a face-to-face event soon.